A huge victory for City, beating Bournemouth 3-1, and a really exciting, interesting on-ball performance from City, and a really clever utilisation of Cherki, Doku and Foden. In this video, I'm going to explore Cherki's false winger role, how City overloaded Bournemouth centrally with their three central options of Doku, Foden and Cherki, exploring what worked, what maybe is the weakness of this sort of setup, and just overall touch on the game and that role and all the lovely rotations that we saw in the game. Let's begin with how both sides set up, and then I'm going to go on to the rotations before then touching in more specific detail on Cherki's false winger role. These are the starting lineups from the match. Bournemouth were a little bit under strength. They didn't have Evan Nilsson to call on, still coming back from injury, and they did not start their chief right centre-back. Instead, Diakite was the option at right centre-back, who I do rate as a player, but he did struggle in this match. Bournemouth went man-to-man against City. This isn't anything new, we've seen it before, but as I will get into, that was a borderline suicidal setup to do at the Etihad when you have Cherki, Haaland on the pitch. Absolute madness that Bournemouth did that. Iraola, who I do rate as a manager, I felt got it wrong. City, this was their off-ball shape 4-3-3. A key talking point before the game, certainly for me anyway, was where is Cherki going to play? Not on ball, because I knew he was surely going to play in the centre on ball. More so the off ball. Was Guardiola going to risk playing Cherki centrally as he did against Spurs? Or was it going to be what I've been wishing for a while now, something that we explored in pre-season on this channel? Is it going to be a false winger setup? And thankfully, that's exactly what it was. So generally speaking, this was how City set up. Now, there were a number of rotations throughout the match, so this isn't exactly correct. But generally speaking, this was how City set up against Bournemouth when they had possession. I'll go into more detail on the rotations. It was a build-up of a 2-3-5, which we have seen this season, but we haven't seen the back two in a while, so it was a little bit surprising that Pep opted for it in this game. I was anticipating a back three, instead it was a two. The key offensive function of this structure is Núñez pushing up to the right, O'Reilly pushing up to the left. And you might be thinking, Nobbins, what is a false winger, you little commie? What even is that as a term? Essentially, all a false winger is when a nominal wide player, a nominal winger, starts, let's say, out at right wing, but they aren't actually a winger. It's this false winger. They then are enabled to drift inside. They are accommodated for by usually a right back pushing up and being that primary outlet out wide. This is not the first time City have done this. Think back to the 23-24 season when Foden won Player of the Year. That season, he was a false winger for a lot of those matches. He started out on one wing, whether left or right. The fullback, Guardiola or Kyle Walker, would push up. That would enable him to access the centre and be an offensive midfielder. Cherki was doing that today. For me, this is the perfect way to get Cherki into the side easily, because you are not introducing any off-ball liabilities. Cherki's a very good presser out from the right wing, less so from the centre. Never really played there for Lyon as a central midfielder, but you aren't limiting him on ball. You're still granting him that access to the centre. So Cherki in a more advanced area of the pitch, Foden slightly deeper, beautiful. What was interesting was it was a double overlapping fullback scenario with Doku coming in centrally also. So at times, you had all three of Cherki, Foden, Doku overloading and occupying those central zones. For example, who do you think this player is? This is their touch map from the game against Bournemouth. It's a City player. This is our left winger. Nominal left winger. This is Jeremy Doku. Look at how much freedom there is for Doku to roam about all over the place. Of course, there are a decent number of touches out on the left, but there are so many in the centre. Moreover, there are so many out at right wing and right of centre as well. The key to defeating a man-to-man marking and pressing system that Bournemouth implemented is to befuddle, confuse your opponent by allowing a number of your players to rotate, be fluid with one another, cause confusion in the opposition. There were a number of occasions where Bournemouth's players were so perplexed, often their fullbacks, that they would actually, quite hilariously, be picking up one of their own players because they did not know where to go. The right back, for example, Jimenez, he didn't know whether Doku was going to be out wide and therefore should stay there. He didn't know whether he should be picking up Doku when he came in centrally. Then that leaves Nico O'Reilly to have all the space and time in the world. And we'll get on to Cherki on a more individual level. I'm very excited to talk about that. First of all, let's just set the scene and the general rotations. This is the overarching shape that City opted for. There are the two centre-backs. There's Nico, the defensive midfielder. Foden, Bernardo either side. And then you've got Doku and Cherki as the two advanced 8/10s, whatever you want to call them. You've got O'Reilly holding the width out there as well. But it wasn't limited to Nico being that deep. Look at this scene here. You've got Bernardo dropping in as that central centre-back. Actually, if you look at the positioning of Foden and the positioning of Nico, you might expect them to be in the opposite places, but instead it's Foden who's deeper and Nico a little bit more advanced. It's just was a fascinating match to watch as a City fan. Here, City go wide because that's where the space is. City have overloaded the centre with all of those players I mentioned before. That does mean that there is going to be space out wide for O'Reilly and Núñez to attack. Foden is pointing to Joško, instructing him to play it to O'Reilly. And if O'Reilly goes wide, that means Doku is enabled to go centrally in a similar fashion to how Cherki was off that right side. So the system creates this move for City. Doku picks it up and it's a really nice ball into Nico, who then slips in O'Reilly. And from here, but for a very good block by Truffert, it could have been a goal inside the first 4 minutes. Similar example here. Joško on the ball, Foden pointing. Look at how deep Bernardo Silva is. He is the central centre-back here between Joško, Guardiola and Ruben Diaz. The space is out there wide for Nico O'Reilly. What's interesting is that there are so many bodies in the build-up for City. A big challenge for City in this game was that Bournemouth are fantastic at pressing. They have one of the best records, RE, passes per defensive action. They're monstrous in their press. One way that City got around that was to drop lots of players back in the build-up to outnumber Bournemouth, who didn't especially adapt their forward press. They didn't commit too many bodies forwards in their front line. They committed a few midfielders forward, but their shape stayed the same. So it meant it was very easy for City to actually outnumber Bournemouth's forward numbers. That was instructed by Nico and Bernardo's really deep positioning. What this does is it sucks in Bournemouth's press. Look at how many Bournemouth players are congested in the centre there. Also, take note of the forwards positioning here with Cherki and Haaland. They are creating a disconnect between the defence and the midfield. There is potential in this scene here for the centre to be exploited. Now, eventually, City just go out wide. Nothing comes of it. But just a few seconds later, it is a very similar setup. So before it wasn't used, City went out wide instead. However, this time, City once again in their 2-3-5 shape. You got Doku out wide. Earlier you had O'Reilly out wide. This is the point about rotations. So that was at 5:10, so 5:27, around 15 seconds later, they've just swapped. So it wasn't exclusively Doku centrally, O'Reilly out wide. They had those rotations to befuddle Bournemouth's fullbacks. A similar situation here. There is a disconnect between the defence and the midfield. The centre is congested. Nico, who had an exceptional game, could have done an analysis video on a number of individual performances in this match. Nico finds Foden. Foden immediately out to Doku. This leads to a decent opportunity for City, and it's quite a good block by Senesi, and that was just in the opening 5 minutes. Loads of examples where City were able to get around and bypass Bournemouth's press and just bypass their midfield generally also. Similar story for this one. Bournemouth's back four is pinned, not just by the forwards, but also Núñez playing almost as that right winger. You got Nico O'Reilly as the left winger in this instance. Look at my left winger, technically, Jeremy Doku, dropping to receive here. This gives Adams a question. This gives him a predicament. What does he do? He's not expecting a left winger to be popping up right in front of him here, so he opts to go and deal with Doku, but look at all the space that has now been created for Foden. No one's picking him up, so he's able to turn and drive into space instead. So Doku essentially acting as a decoy there. Nico and Bernardo, again, they drop deep, they bait the press, they suck it in, they are inviting the pressure, they are comfortable in their ability to deal with said pressure. They're not near their goal, so they feel comfortable doing it because Nico and Bernardo are very solid. In that instance, Doku has once again drifted over to like right central midfield, and it's a similar story where Foden has loads of space to run into and attack Bournemouth. It's a similar story. Foden's now able to receive the ball, turn and attack Bournemouth. It's a lovely little link up with Doku. City give it away, but then Nico immediately gets in, wins that second ball. Foden with a devilish little flick comes out to Doku, Nico O'Reilly, and this is a decent crossing opportunity for City. This is only allowed because of all those rotations that City were doing throughout the match. Final example before we get on to Cherki specifically. This is a really weird picture that you're looking at right now. So, like, just pay attention to where all the players are. Centre-backs are where they should be. Okay, fine. You got Bernardo dropping in, doing his thing. Okay, sure. There's Cherki, who is deeper than Foden, deeper than Nico Gonzalez as well. So there's my number 6, my nominal number 6. There's technically, I guess, my in-possession number 10. So Cherki's where you might expect Foden to be, Foden where Nico should be, and then Nico perhaps where Cherki should be. Doku the only one in his, quote, correct position here. I just think the Bournemouth players didn't really know what to do, so it was fantastic work by City. Areola just could not adapt. Lovely lofted ball by Bernardo, just bypasses once again all of Bournemouth, and City are away attacking again. And look at the positioning of Nunes. What does the positioning of Nunes do? It means that Cherki is allowed easy access to the centre as that false winger. He cannot do what he does here, a gorgeous little flick, just slightly not quite there, but the idea is absolutely wonderful, and Cherki ain't doing that if he is stood here where Nunes is. There is nothing wrong with playing Cherki at right wing off ball, but City must, in order to get the best out of him and therefore achieve the best for City overall, play him centrally, because that is where you're going to see the best version of him, and that is the beauty of the false winger system. It mitigates off-ball liability, it enhances and empowers on-ball effectiveness. And now let's talk about Cherki more specifically, because I think that's what most people are here for. And it's certainly what I am here for. I adore Cherki as a player. If you haven't already done so, go watch my analysis video of him, where I basically wrote an essay about why I love him as a player, because he is so lovely and wonderful. Just evidencing the idea that this was the area of the pitch where he was playing, not as a touchline winger shackled to the chalk, able to access that right half space in particular, also sometimes popping up on the left side as well. The beauty of City's setup. A good number of defensive actions as well. Note where those defensive actions were as well. They are in this area, right wing. This is where you want Cherki off ball, right wing. He's a very good presser there. Don't let anyone tell you anything differently, by the way, that Cherki's lazy or has a bad attitude or is a terrible presser, blah, 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 blah. He is really good as a defensive player at right wing. That's where he thrived off ball for Lyon. I believe that's where we should be playing him for City, as in this game. So here is another example of the positioning. Look at how wide Nunes is. So that's our right back, being played more so as a right centre back this season, before this game demonstrating his effectiveness as an offensive, functional right back, pushing up to right wing, enabling Cherki to drift into the centre. Bournemouth crossed the ball in. I think it was Diaz who cleared it. Foden with a cushioned header out to Haaland. Haaland, lovely little flick out to Nico here, first time. Now Nico, who was wonderful in the game, by the way. I would argue this was his best performance on an individual level. He's progressing so much more than I envisaged this early on in his City career. He's absolutely fantastic. He delays. Now, look, this is really good by City. However, that backwards Z, that is Bournemouth's back four. They have just lost the ball, but it's not like they lost the ball a second ago. They had enough time. When did they lose it? They lost it officially, 16-10? So 5 seconds. So the right back and centre back, they could get back. The midfield could get organised. They haven't. This is bad by Bournemouth, of course. Diakite, that's the right centre-back. He's pushed up onto Haaland. He really should be dropping deep, as the right-back should be doing also, and the midfield should be doing accordingly. There is zero pressure on Nico Gonzalez from Scott, who has had a good season, but here, he's a non-factor here. It's a lovely lofted ball. And what happens here is, I believe this is Senesi here, so he realises, oh my god, my centre-back partner's absolutely pushed up, and I got Erling Haaland, the best number 9 in the world, a disgusting transitional fiend in attack. I need to do something here. So he's almost in an impossible situation because his centre-back partner has shafted him. He opts to try to intercept. By the time he realises he's not going to get there, it is too late. Haaland realises this, he runs in behind, and this is a consequence of Bournemouth's man-to-man pressing. It is an error from Bournemouth, but do not take anything away from Nico's ball into Cherki, and this is a wonderful, direct, sumptuous, lovely header by Cherki. I didn't think that his first assist for Haaland in the Premier League would be with his head, and yet he is that creative. Left foot, right foot, chest, head. I'm sure he could do it with the shoulders as well. It does not matter. Cherki is able to do that. And from this point onwards, you just know as a City fan that City are going to be scoring a goal there. So that was really wonderful play by City. Lacklustre from Bournemouth, but we take those. Absolutely we do. The relationship between Foden, Cherki, Doku in those central areas was absolutely wonderful to see. And it's because they trust one another. Foden and Cherki in particular have already developed such a fantastic relationship and chemistry with one another. All of these actions from Cherki, I'm going to show you, basically could not be achieved without the false winger role that he was assigned in this game, because the vast majority, if not all of them, come from that central area of the pitch. Cherki trusts Foden in this really tight area on the chest. Fantastic chest control, as I was alluding to earlier. Foden first time, out to Doku. Foden and Cherki continue their run. Foden's looking for Cherki, doesn't quite work out, but ultimately does lead to Haaland having a decent shot at goal. This move here exemplifies what I mean about the understanding between Foden and Cherki, what each player is trying to achieve. So there's not too much going on here. City have the ball in Bournemouth's defensive third. Bournemouth are actually set up really sharply and really well defensively. Okay, so Nico is on the ball. I want you to pay attention in the first instance to what Foden, and I think this is Adams here, what are they doing with one another? So Foden initially drops deep to receive, realises he's not going to be much help there. So instead he identifies there's an area of space here to potentially attack. Okay. Adams is looking at him directly. He is concerned with Foden because he knows that Foden's a very good player in those tight areas on the half turn. So he's a bit concerned about him. He's still paying attention to him. The ball's still with Nico. Nothing's changed there. Foden drifts to the right. This forces Adams to drift to the right because he's concerned about Foden receiving the ball. Whilst Adams has his head turned to Foden, Nico has passed the ball to Cherki, and now all of a sudden, this passing lane into Bernardo has opened up. And that shouldn't have opened up, but it did, just because I believe that what Foden was trying to do here was create a passing opportunity for Cherki by essentially using himself as a magnet to give Cherki access to that passing lane. And then from there, because of that movement, it goes past him, because Adams has now moved out of position, comes to Bernardo, 1-2 with Doku, and if this pass is just a little bit better, then this would have been a wonderful second assist for Cherki. A fantastic bit of playmaking by Cherki, just slightly overhits it Doku, but the idea was absolutely there, and it was wonderful from Foden, Doku, and Cherki in that instance. This is the second goal. City are baiting the press. They are congesting the centre. The forward line is pinning the defence back. That's creating a big gap between the defence and the midfield. What's also interesting to note is Bournemouth's left-back, Truffert, is not in the picture. Now, why isn't he in the picture? Well, it's because the right winger, aka Nunes, is pinning him. So he's forcing him to go out there. So for the purposes of City's second goal, because of Nunes' positioning, the left-back is a non-factor. That's really important positioning and placement by Nunes. This entire goal only happens because of that, the false winger system, but it also only happens if these players trust one another implicitly. Nico here, the number 6, is going to fizz the ball into Foden. The Foden fizz. The only way that he would do that, because it's not like Foden has got acres of space here. Like, he is surrounded by a number of Bournemouth players, as we're going to see here. Senesi is also about to jump onto him as well. So this only works if Nico trusts his midfielders. And it only works if your midfielders in Foden and Cherki here have an exceptional understanding and first touch with one another. And indeed they do. Ball into Nico. Senesi jumps. I think he does that because what he's thinking is Foden's going to receive the ball, turn, drive. So I've got to get out to him quickly. That's not what Foden does. Foden's already scanned. He's had that 360 vision. So he knows if he actually just plays a first-time ball to Cherki, as he does here, look at this picture now. There's no left centre-back. And the left-back is nowhere near Haaland because of Núñez's positioning, which we can't see on screen, but he's out here, out at right wing. So right now, the Cherki, with a wonderful ball, is able to turn this into a 1v1 between Haaland and Diakite, and there is only ever one winner in that sort of matchup. The understanding between the two. You got Nico and Foden with the playmaking. You got Cherki making that final creative killer pass. It was wonderful to see for City. And it was time for Cherki to return the favour to Foden here. I'll keep repeating it. This is only possible with the false winger system, with Núñez pushing out to right wing, once again dealing with Bournemouth's left back. Cherki trusts Foden in the same way that Foden trusts Cherki, and Nico trusts these two players as well. You don't have to know that much about football or know anything about analysis to just understand that sometimes, indeed all the time, ballers like to ball with other ballers. Yeah, get that printed on a t-shirt. I think it was Aristotle who said that. Ballers like to ball with other ballers. They like to play with one another. You can clearly see that. I mean, you can see it in their off-pitch interactions and social media posts as well. But you can also see it just on the pitch as well. Cherki into Foden here. The turn takes this defender out of play. The pass takes this defender out of play. So one turn and pass is also foul table. One turn, one pass, two midfielders are taken out of play, gets the ball to O'Reilly, who does wonderfully well to surge forward and get that finish off. And I just thought this was like a cute little thing. Like, Guardiola's clearly going, feel, and then gives him like a little kiss. I just thought that was very cute. Lovely third goal, which ultimately killed the game for City. And that was because of Cherki and Foden, the chemistry they have with one another. It was wonderful to see. I also just want to briefly touch on the potential weaknesses of the shape and also potential liabilities / weaknesses of Cherki generally as a player, because he's received mixed reviews, which has surprised me in all honesty. I thought it was wonderful and great. Of course, he can do more, but I was very, very happy with his performance. But you had people saying that Cherki's lazy, Cherki doesn't run, all he does is walk. That's just like not correct. Here's one such example. So this is quite early on in the game, only 7 minutes. So City have just had a corner. Now Bournemouth are counter-attacking with Semenyo. Cherki here, low-key, stops the goal from being scored. Because if Cherki doesn't run back and sprint back to help out his team here, if he was this lazy player who's just going to meander and walk around and do like a half-arsed jog like that, then I think a goal is scored here. Instead, he runs back, and you can say, oh, this is the bare minimum, whatever, but I think it's important to outline that Cherki isn't this lazy, can't-be-arsed player who will never sprint for his team or work off-ball defensively. I really don't like that as a narrative. I just think that it illustrates a lack of understanding of the sort of player that Cherki is, and I just don't like it. So here, because imagine if Cherki's not here, just for a second, this is a 3-on-2. With Semenyo leading the charge. You know, one of the best offensive players so far in the league this season, if Cherki allowed himself to get sprinted past. But he doesn't. He stays with him, and he forces Semenyo to play it out here, and Núñez is wonderful here, and he should get a lot of credit. Absolutely, he should. But I think Cherki also deserves a little bit of credit as well. Absolutely. Okay, weaknesses. There is a fundamental weakness of this system, rather this shape. It's nothing new. Every single shape has a weakness. The weakness of this one is there is space here. Obviously, massive chasms of space in between the fullbacks / the in-possession wingers. And we saw that very, very early on, because Doku here unfortunately gives the ball away. And look, the left back is not doing anything wrong here. He's going into his on-ball position, left wing, but that means Bournemouth have such an easy task of attacking it. And but for this play being slightly offside, Bournemouth actually go 1 goal up inside the first minute of the game because of that fundamental weakness in the structure of this shape. This is a reality with any shape you go for. You can't name a shape which is ultimately imperious offensively and defensively. This just happens to be the weakness of one of those, of this shape. It does require being more assured in the opening phases of play, not giving the ball away, because something like this will happen. On the topic of giving the ball away, whilst I have applauded Cherki a lot, this will happen for Cherki. The best creative players, Kevin De Bruyne, everyone, their passing accuracy, whatever, should be relatively low compared to, say, like a defensive midfielder, because they are tasked with creating something out of nothing quite often. They are tasked with being expressive, creative players. It is just a question of understanding when and where to take those risks and when to measure them correctly. There were a couple of instances where Cherki did not get that balance right. So here, this is at a crucial point in the game as well. Early in the second half, City only leading 2-1. There is no need for Cherki to... I don't even know what he's trying to do here. He plays it into the Bournemouth play. He should just play a simple ball to O'Reilly. Eventually, just a few seconds later, 10 seconds later, this turns into a decent opportunity for Bournemouth to attack our box. Still only at 2-1, just a few minutes later, like 3 minutes later, Cherki sells Foden short, leads to this situation. How many seconds is that? Another 10 seconds there or thereabouts. Thankfully, the shot is hit centrally, so Donnarumma can deal with it easily. But there were just a couple of examples, and Cherki wasn't the only one, but these were the ones that actually led to decent attempts for Bournemouth. There is nothing wrong with that. It will happen now. And the good thing is that after this, Cherki put both hands up and he said, I'm sorry, I apologise, I know I've made an error there. These things will happen. It will get better with time. His decision-making will get better with time. Whilst he is an experienced player, he's still only 21 years old. There's plenty of matches, plenty of minutes for him to be coached and with that match experience, just get better at that decision making. So it's not a cause for concern for me. It is something to bring up, and it's absolutely something which is legitimate to bring up, but it is not a fundamental problem with his game. It is not a bad thing inherently. It is a reality of creative players. Now it's just going to be fine-tuning and moulding to perfection, because that's what Kevin De Bruyne, for example, was known for. Not only making those risky creative passes, but knowing when and where to take them. So if you end up losing the ball, you're not going to have a bad time. That's all Cherki needs to learn, I think. I think everything else on ball, like borderline, is already there. We've got a fantastic player on our hands, and I'm just so thrilled to see the shape that we've discussed at length in pre-season, the dynamics with Foden and Cherki. I'm just so thrilled. It's something that we've discussed on this channel a lot, and I'm very happy to report that it worked out really, really well in the win against Bournemouth. Not a perfect win. Could have been better off ball, but Bournemouth are a very, very good side. Thank you so much for watching. I don't know how long I've been talking for. It felt like quite a long video, but hopefully you did enjoy it. If you did, there are 2 ways you can support me. You can do it by leaving a like on the video, if you are able to, and if you would like to. The best way to support me and the channel is to become a member of the YouTube channel or become a supporter on Patreon, the links for which are in the video description. Speaking of support, shout out to all of my wonderful highest tier YouTube channel members: Tony, Spartacus, Silver Splits the Blue, Ethan Larios, Austin King, and Rowan.